some of our shared understanding around the purposes of the goals of education, public education, equity, right up in center, which is good because it's in the title of this program. So you are in the right info session. Fabulous. My name is Leahy Rosenthal. I am the director of LEAD EDD and also have the joy of hosting this here info session today. And I'm now going to throw it in just a second to our faculty advisor, Jabari Mahiri. Before I do that, I want to just talk through a couple of details. The first is that we highly encourage you to use the Q&A function throughout the session this afternoon. The Q&A function should be at the bottom of your screen there on Zoom, and it will allow us to collect your questions throughout the session, and we've dedicated some time at the end of the session to answer as many of those as we can. The ones that we are not able to get to, we will certainly email responses to following the session. And so with no further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Jabari Mahiri, who is a professor of education here at the GSE. He is also our faculty advisor of the leadership programs, of which LEAD is a member, as well as the Bay Area Writing Project, and serves, as you can see, in many other roles and has many other titles. So with no further ado, Jabari.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are really excited to host you all in an information session this afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to join us. You will probably be able to see on your screen shortly the mission statement for the LEAD program. And we won't read that mission statement to you, but we are really excited that it represents a new direction for doctoral leadership programs. And basically, the word cloud that you all created for us is giving us a lot of the insights and directions that will allow this kind of orientation in doctoral leadership to come into existence. You have social justice, you have equity consciousness, you have a number of ways of considering what's needed in leadership, probably more so than ever before in the current climate in which we're all facing. I'm particularly excited about the new LEAD program as one of our leadership programs. We also have Dr. Rebecca Chung, who is the executive director of our leadership programs that includes PLI. And you notice that our principal leadership program has been in existence for 20 years. It has become a premier program in the country and has been a model for essentially what we're trying to do across the state and across the country at that level. And we want to duplicate the same intensity and impact at the doctoral level, at the systems level, at the level of administrating and actualizing complex educational systems, whether they be in schools or other educational venues that you might be interested in engaging in. I'm excited also because our Dean, Dean Prudis Carter, has put our professional programs and our leadership programs at the very center of activities of the Graduate School of Education, being the place that's going to be fueled more and more by many of our Senate faculty members who are some of the most renowned faculty members in the world in their selected research areas. And so one of the things you'll benefit by is the idea of being able to have access to some of these faculty members to help guide your work, your research, your design thinking for trying to address particular kinds of problems in education. I could go on and on, but let me just stop there as a way of beginning our discussion today. And of course, we all will be available, Dr. Sablo Sutton, Dr. Rosenthal, and myself to answer additional questions. So welcome, welcome.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mahiri. It's very wonderful to be here with you all today, and thank you all for showing up in this distance learning format. It certainly is not the way that we would normally engage with you, where we would be able to say hi and give high fives and hello to the folks that we recognize, but we're really, really happy that you're able to learn about this program that is, as Jabari said, we're so excited about this relaunch. So Leahy asked me to speak today because I was a doctoral student in the Graduate School of Education I started my graduate career in 1994 as a master's student in the Language Literacy and Culture division. That's what it was called back then. And then I decided to stay on and pursue my PhD in the same content area. And what I remember about being a graduate student at UC Berkeley in the GSE was just the incredible access that I had to a range of scholars who had deep knowledge, deep pedagogical knowledge, deep practical knowledge, deep theoretical knowledge about really important issues of education. And so as a practitioner, as somebody who has worked in schools for many years, you all may be thinking that, you know a lot about how to do education, about what works for kids. And so when you're contemplating, well, should I think about pursuing a doctorate in education? My answer to you would be yes, because what you're going to bring to the table is all of those years of practical knowledge. And then you get to align that knowledge with all of the theories of education that the faculty here at the School of Ed have essentially spent their entire careers thinking about and developing and testing. And so it's a wonderful combination, if you will, bringing the practical side and then meshing that with the deep theoretical knowledge that you're going to be exposed to. And so as Jabari mentioned, I highly encourage you as you're thinking about the process leading up to admissions to really give a hard look at the GSE and who is on the roster, if you will. Take a look at the website, take a look at the professors who work here, and look at what their fields of expertise are, because when I was in the PLI program, so after I got my PhD and worked in the field for a while, I decided I wanted to be a school leader. And I came through the PLI program. And I would say there's a distinction between being a PLI student, for all the alumni who are on the call, versus being a doctoral student. And one distinction that I saw was that as a doctoral student, you get to work right up close with those professors. So knowing that you're going to have a really deep relationship as a doctoral student with faculty members, it's a good idea to learn on the front end who these folks are that you might be spending the next few years with. I'm really excited that you're considering coming to the GSE and that we'll have an opportunity to continue with you on your journey for educational leadership. So welcome, and we hope you decide to apply.
Great, thank you so much, Soraya. As I was hearing Soraya speaking, I was thinking, yes, we planned this initially in person, and it was going to be this joyous kind of coming out party for us as a new program. And we were excited to show off our beautiful space. And so our Zoom room is not quite as festive as Berkeley Way West, but we certainly are hoping that by next July, when the first cohort begins classes, we'll be back in our beautiful building. Although, as we have to in public education, we are making multiple plans as we can. It's my pleasure to talk a little bit now about the specifics of the program, the curriculum, the student experience. I just want to remind you, we highly encourage you to use the Q&A function to start populating questions. Jabari mentioned this a little bit, but I did want to return to the idea that, LEAD exists in a continuum of leadership programs at the GSE, and that's really a shift, not only for the EdD program, but for our leadership programs as a whole. Under the direction of our incredible Dean Carter, Rebecca is serving as the executive director. Those of you who are familiar with the PLI, of course, know Rebecca. She rarely needs an introduction in Bay Area education circles. She is just a fabulous leader, and guiding her work and supporting her work is Jabari. And so we also have that link between what we really think of as the deep knowledge that our leadership programs clinical faculty have from, sometimes decades of experience in the field of education, as well as that alliance, that partnership with our Senate faculty, such as Jabari, who have spent years, defining some of the theory and providing the research that helps us try to equal the playing field for all students in our public system. LEAD, as you'll see, is really one of what we consider 4 different branches of the leadership programs. PLI is the master's level and preliminary administrative services credential program. That is a program where aspiring teachers learn how to become administrators, and often leave that program and join LSP to clear their credential while engaging in their first kind of foray into leadership positions. Both Soraya and I are graduates of that program, both of those programs. And so, you know, what's true of both of them, and kind of what we sometimes talk about as the secret sauce of PLI, is that it is a highly rigorous, highly engaging academic program that really, you know, holds equity and social justice at its core, and prepares cohorts upon cohorts. I think 636 is the latest number of graduates, many of whom you know, go on to lead Bay Area schools. The EdD program, until this iteration, was not part of that continuum. And so the secret sauce of PLI, of really being able to prepare, exceptionally prepare leaders, while also ensuring that they are successful in the program, is something that we wanted more of in the EdD. And so by joining together, the hope certainly is that LEAD can create a coherent bridge with some of those learnings at the site-based level into what is now an inquiry into system leadership at the doctorate level. And all of those programs are supported by the Program for Visiting Educational Leaders and the new 21st Century California School Leadership Academy grant that was awarded to a number of partners, including the GSE, to support practicing leaders as well. Specifically, when we think about LEAD, there are a few differentiators that are really important. The first is it is a rigorous 3-year program, but it is a 3-year program, inclusive of dissertation. Again, we are certainly borrowing from the tradition of PLI, which runs a very intellectually stimulating, very rigorous program that graduates darn near 100% of folks on time. It's a small program and a cohort-based program, which I'll talk more about in just a second, that is admitting students biennially. So we will only be admitting students on odd-numbered years, so 2021, 2023, 2025. The emphasis on the program unapologetically is about designing for equity and system leadership, following the rule that if you don't design for equity, you perpetuate inequity. We are really doubling down on the importance of system leaders in dismantling systems of oppression and creating a new vision for democratic schooling in this country. We're preparing our graduates to go on from lead to lead in the highest levels of organization, whether that's superintendencies or as executive directors of nonprofits. Some will go on to careers in higher education. Some will go on to careers in policy or advocacy. You know, LEAD is following in the tradition of previous EdD programs at Berkeley, which have prepared everyone from, you know, the superintendents of some of the largest school systems in the Bay Area and their chief academic officers in some cases, to Mary Sandy, the executive director of the California Teaching Commission, folks who are working at Stanford, individuals who are working in, you know, the nonprofit and community-based worlds as well. We strongly believe that equity conscious leadership is an embodied practice. And so what that means is that this is not a sit and get EdD program. There are a lot of experiential components to the program where, you know, we are actually trying on and practicing some of those skills and mindsets that are necessary to be transformational leaders in the field. And lastly, we do also make a guarantee to folks that they will develop their skills in preparing for, you know, different presentation options or publication options, that those will be skills and practices that are woven into the program. An idea of the course time and schedule. Each year begins with a summer session in which the cohort spends 4 full days a week for 4 weeks on the Cal campus. Of course, all of this, you know, you can imagine the asterisk with the current public health pandemic. And the expectation is that that is an in-person on-campus experience. From there, during the fall and spring semester, the LEAD students generally take 1 afternoon class per week with other doctoral students. This is the opportunity to learn alongside traditional PhD students, school psychology students, and others. And some of those classes are available online or in hybrid format, but not all. And then lastly, 12 times per year, the cohort convenes for a Friday evening online session and then an all-day Saturday in person. That cohort experience that I talked about earlier really is central to what it is that we're aiming to do. The idea is that the cohort takes all of their classes together during the first year. That helps us develop a really shared understanding of system leadership, of what it is that we mean by anti-racist system leadership, by this concept of democratic schooling. Leaders for Equity and Democracy is in our title, and we want to make sure that we deliver on that, and also on the research methods that are necessary to pursue doctoral studies. At the same time, in years 2 and 3, we also wanted to provide the opportunity for personalization. There are many different ways to lead for anti-racist systems, and so students have the opportunity to complete a variety of elective courses and field residencies, both along some of their cohort members and alongside other PhD students. But this is the place where, you know, you are taking some of your courses with the cohort and others on your own path. When we say elective courses, we mean a variety of courses within the GSE, as well as ones that might be offered across other schools at UC Berkeley or at our institutional partners, such as the other UCs, Stanford, Mills, Harvard. There's a whole list of institutional partners we work with. And to give you an idea of what some of those courses are, you'll see on the left hand of this, the slide here, some of our required courses, which again, we really see as foundational to the work of social justice system leadership. These are courses that are taken together as a cohort and may or may not include either PhD students from throughout the GSE, such as the first year doctoral student core course, which is a course that all first year doctoral students take together. Or in the cases of courses like storytelling for leaders or negotiation, they may actually involve students from other schools on campus as well. On the right-hand side is a sampling of some of the elective courses that are available. I encourage you to go onto our website, and we'll post that link in just a moment, to take a look at some of these courses and also to consider that these are just truly a smattering. There are a variety of courses that are available for students to take. I mentioned earlier the field residency component. We do believe very strongly, as I said, that practice is central to praxis and central to actually embodying the concepts that we're learning. And so there are 2 field residency requirements as students complete during their second year. And the first takes place within a public education system. And by public education system, we mean anything from a district office to a public university. This gives you an inside look at the highest level of decision-making within the formal public education space. And it also allows you to pursue either an area in which you see yourself wanting to go career-wise. Perhaps you're interested in curriculum and instruction, and so you're doing a field residency within that department. Or for some students, it may be a place to really hone up some skills and some experiences that you haven't had. And so some students may be shadowing the chief business officer or the HR directors of a school district, because that's an element that they really need some firsthand experience of. The second residency is much more open-ended. It's meant to really focus on educational innovation. And one of the foundational beliefs that we have is that you cannot solve a cross-sector problem like educational inequity with single sector resources or expertise. And so we think it's really important that doctoral students have the experience of influencing educational practice in disparate settings. And so that means that, you might choose to work with a local nonprofit, you might choose to work, in a policy or advocacy space, and you may also wish to do a field visit with one of our faculty members in which you're actually traveling to observe and experience a disparate setting. Everything from, heading down to Southern California for a yearly labor management symposium and think tank that convenes down there, to traveling internationally with a faculty member, or traveling to the US-Mexico border, or to Sacramento or DC, to really see the different ways in which educational inequity plays out. Now, lastly here, if I can find this little button, before we take a quick break and just kind of check in on how you're doing, the last piece I want to really talk about is the advising structure in the dissertation. As Soraya spoke to, this is a different model than the kind of very supported insular PLI experience that some of us have had. And that's because doctoral candidates work with the dissertation committee, and they work very closely with that dissertation committee of 3 faculty members. 2 of those faculty members, a Senate faculty member and a clinical faculty member, will serve as the advisors for each dissertation project. We think that this is really critical because just in that same way that I described, Rebecca and Jabari as kind of the 2 heads of this organization, there are really different lived experiences and insights that those different members have. And we want to make sure that our students are gaining both perspectives. In order to facilitate that successful completion of the dissertation within normative timelines, those partnerships are established upon admissions. We'll look at a timeline in just a bit when we get to application and admissions questions. But you actually will have the chance to get to know your advisor very early on in the process, and they will be working with you from your earliest days in the program to ensure that the dissertation work that you'll be undertaking, the research work that you'll be undertaking, will be evolving naturally from the very start of the program. Another way in which we hope to support students, both in being able to take on projects that really have salience in the field and to complete the program with efficiency, is by partnering them into research opportunities that are ongoing, so that you're not doing, a project that is short-lived and may or may not see the light of day. That's often known of dissertations, is that they're not always circulated or really part of a living research to practice interaction, and we want to make sure that that's not the case. And so we'll be pairing students with, through their advisors, with existing efforts and existing data sets at the system level, so that you are not, taking on a project that is, only lives through you, but that instead you both have the opportunity to use existing data and to contribute to a larger effort. I'm going to pause here for just a second before passing it back on to Jabari. Before we shift our focus to admissions, in the chat, we would love it if you want to just reflect on some of what is the most exciting aspects of the program design that we've just shared. And as you're sharing what you're excited about, you may also be realizing that there are some questions that are coming up. And so also just a reminder to submit some questions into that Q&A so that we can begin to prepare appropriate responses. We have just a couple minutes to do that. Great. I see a comment about the cohort model being really excited, as well as the field residencies. Thank you, Ronald. Make sure in your chat that if you want everyone to see your response, you click on all panelists and attendees, because otherwise you may only be sharing your responses with those of us on the panel, Soraya, Jabari, and myself. Let's see another one, the dissertation committee assignment early on is exciting. Big picture, the intentional tight coupling. Oh, wow, here they all come. Oh, it says it's not allowing you to show it to attendees. We're sorry about that. I'll read some of these out. Excited about the quality of the structure of the cohort model. A program focused on ongoing living practice. Wonderful. Partnering schools. Awesome. Please keep those comments coming, as well as I do see that our Q&A is filling up, which is wonderful to see. I'm going to pass it back over to Jabari, who will lead us through the next phase of our conversation about admissions.
Thank you, Leahy. And thank you all for all your comments. This is really helping us to think more deeply about how the design of our program can serve you and your interests better. Obviously, the first step will be getting into the program. So you want to be a doctor. It's the highest degree that we offer in our land. And as a consequence, this notion of being ready to go into doctoral studies is really a reflection on you as an individual in terms of where you are in your life. I know when I first made that decision many years ago to go into a doctoral program, I think what was most interesting to me was to want to be challenged at the maximum level, but not just an artificial intellectual challenge, being able to be among very smart people and showing, of course, that you're also smart, but being challenged to transform yourself, to gain more knowledge and to gain more skills, to be better at what you had in the way of your own goals and aspirations in relationship to your career development and your personal life development. So I'm on two committees. One is the University of California at Berkeley's admissions committee, and I'm also on the system-wide committee for admissions for the entire 10 systems of our university. And one of the things that's being focused at both of those levels, and of course I want to suggest that we're having the same focus, is that the notion of a holistic evaluation of your application materials is what will be the process that we go through. So certainly you have to take the GRE, but the GRE is not definitive of who you are as a holistic person, as a scholar, as a set of interests and endeavors, ways that you want to engage in transformation of education after you receive your doctorate degree, as well as the kinds of things that you're doing in preparation for the doctorate degree. So consequently, we are talking about holistic evaluation from the standpoint of we are going to try to offer you the best set of experiences, but part of those experiences, the quality of those experiences is determined by what you are going to contribute to your cohort also. So you're an important cog in the quality of the entire process. And so when we're trying to evaluate applications for admissions, it's not just a question of balance, but it's also who is this cohort? How will they be able to push each other around these important issues? What experiences will they bring to bear? Partially, you can also represent that by showing us in your narrative materials and your application materials a little bit more about who you are and what you're passionate about, but also who's influencing you. Who are the kinds of people that you're reading and thinking about that is giving you the ideas for where you want to make important changes in the educational system. And of course, within the context of our own academic resources, who in the Graduate School of Education is a faculty member, a researcher, a scholar that you may have also engaged with in terms of looking at their work to help you think about the direction that you want to go in. So these are some of the kinds of things that you should be thinking about as you put your application materials together. Leahy may talk about this a little bit more, but we're very fortunate in the first cohort that we've received support for each person to get a $15,000 fellowship to be a part of the offset of your tuition as you move through the program. And we are working on other supports for your movement through the program as you get through. But let me just say that in concluding, and of course we can open it up for questions at the end of this information session. Getting through it's not just getting in, but it's also getting out. And what we're committed to is making sure that you have all of the resources that you have once you're in to actually complete the program in 3 years. If there's any spillage, maybe 3.5 years, but we really want people to be out in the field, not just for the speed of it, but we want you to be well prepared. So when you're thinking about applying, do your research on what the School of Education is about, what the LEAD program is about, what the faculty members who are going to be associated with this program are about, and how all of that might factor into what it is that you want to learn, what you're passionate about, and also what you will bring to the program to make it as high a quality of an experience as it can possibly be for all of those people who are part of your cohort. Leahy?
Thank you so much, Jabari. Yes, let's go through a few more details. The LEAD application has a couple of different parts. The first half of the application is driven by the requirements of the graduate division. And so these are the requirements for any student seeking advanced degree at UC Berkeley. You are required to submit your official transcript. There is a 3.0 GPA requirement, and there is a requirement that you have a master's degree, because in a 3-year program, we're not able to offer that as part of the EdD. You are also required to have a GRE submitted within the last 5 years. I want to stress a couple of things here. The first is that the GRE has actually made in-home testing available due to COVID. They will assign you, it's interesting, but they will assign you an online monitor who will watch you and your screen so that you can take it safely from your own home. The second thing I want to stress is that the GRE is an important part of the application in that it's a requirement. We really see this as a holistic application. So we don't throw out the application if there's not a cut score that's met on the GRE. We look at you holistically as an individual, a professional, and a scholar. And so I do want to put that plug in there as well. There are 2 essays that are required of all graduate students. One is your statement of purpose. You have a lot of purposes in life, and we honor all of those. It's really important for us in your statement of purpose to hear about specifically, your purpose when it comes to leadership. We really do want to get a sense of, why lead, why system leadership at a school that is focused very intentionally on equity and democracy. And the second piece is your personal history statement, which, as Jabari said, is a chance for you to tell us a bit more about yourself and what brings you to this work. You are asked to submit 3 letters of recommendation. Please do note a couple of things on that as well. The first is if you have an academic letter of recommendation, someone that you've worked with closely that can speak to your work as a scholar, that is certainly fabulous and encouraged. It is not, however, a requirement. Some of you may have finished your master's program a long time ago, or you may feel that the folks who can speak best to your work are people who know you and your potential from your professional setting, and that is a-okay. These letters of recommendation, what we want to see is your potential as a system leader, your potential as someone who is really seeking to see some transformational change in this society. And so, we encourage you to think beyond supervisor and, graduate instructor, to really think holistically about who knows you best. And if you're applying internationally, there is an English language proficiency component, and you have a choice of 2 exams there. From there, there are the LEAD specific requirements. The application process gets posted by September 1st, and you'll have more details at that time about exactly what this entails. But essentially, there are 3 required components. One is your resume or CV, which again, we hope will show your current trajectory in terms of leadership and certainly any foray you've had already into system leadership, whether that's committee membership, whether that's roles that you play outside of your current professional 9 to 5 that really do show the ways that you've engaged with the system. The second is a signed employer sponsorship form. This essentially is from your current employer, whether that's the district, an organization, or CMO. And this is an important document for a few reasons. One of them is that it acknowledges that they understand and that you have their support in pursuing this, and that does mean that sometimes you'll have an afternoon class, and that afternoon class is not always going to be scheduled around the preferences of the employer, and that they are committing to supporting you in doing that. And there will be some supplemental questions involved as well that again just dig a little bit more clearly into your presence as a leader. If you are so inclined, you are able to also include writing samples or other evidence of academic process. This is completely optional. If you do feel like your master's degree was a very long time ago, your GRE score doesn't represent your capacity as a leader, you are welcome to include, published work that you've done or other samples of your academic promise. In terms of the timeline, as I said, that application will be released in September. You may take the GRE at any point until the start of November. We do need it to be completed in time for us to have a score at the time that we're evaluating your applications. Applications are due at 8:59 p.m. on December 1st of 2020. And that gives us a while to really evaluate your application and notify you if you've been selected for an interview. That will happen by February 1st. The other thing that coincides with our notifications of interviews is that we begin the advisor matching process. It is, as I mentioned earlier, essential that there's an advisor who is 2 advisors actually that are signed on and ready to work with you. And so that is an important part of our matching process. And that begins on February 1st. And you will have the chance to support that matching process when you come in on the 22nd and 23rd for interviews. Those interview dates are pretty solid. And so to the extent that you're able to put a block on them, we certainly would appreciate that, because we want to be able to connect our advisors and our candidates as efficiently as possible. You will then be informed in March of our admissions recommendation. We as LEAD, as the GSE, make a recommendation to grad division that they then finalize. We will notify you in March, and you will then have just under a month to submit your intent to enroll form in April so that we can begin to plan for your arrival. The first day of classes is Tuesday, July 6th. And the summer session, as I mentioned earlier, will meet Tuesday through Friday, starting on the 6th of July for the entirety of the month of July. There are no classes scheduled in June or in August because many of you are, well, you know why if you're in school leadership. A couple of last notes, and then we want to make sure to open it up for questions here. Financing in EdD is certainly something that you should begin considering. For those of us who graduated a while ago, the current rate of tuition, which is set by the regents, it's not something that we have control over, is approximately $30,000. As Jabari mentioned, we are ecstatic to announce that we have secured a first-year fellowship to drastically reduce that amount, and that will not impact your eligibility for federal financial aid should you apply, or for campus scholarships, including the grad division parent grant, which may be available to you if you are a parent in addition to a prospective student. You should keep in mind that graduate student and family housing, university childcare, and health benefits are all available as a condition of your acceptance to the university. Certainly here in the Bay Area, those can be really helpful ways to finance your degree, and because you're able to use your loan to pay for any of those services at a lower rate, this does end up being something that works really well for folks. We will have need-based scholarships in years 2 and 3. And of course, we're continuing to investigate additional fellowships and opportunities, including the opportunities to serve as a graduate student instructor or researcher, which comes with a tuition remission as well. That's our role, but you certainly have a role in financing your education as well. We want to alert you really early that you may be eligible for federal loans, and again, that you could use those loans to offset some of the costs that you incur as a graduate student. And there are also a number of scholarship programs in addition to a variety of scholarships that you can research. There are a few that are specific to this program that we think you should know of. One is that if you're a member of CAPN, the Honor Society for Educators, you are eligible for a variety of scholarships, and it is not too late to become a member if you want to research that and see if that might benefit you. Your university's alumni association may have scholarship opportunities. We know that Cal Alumni does. And lastly, your professional union may have scholarships available as well. And with that, we would love to open it up for a Q&A. I know that Soraya and Yelena, who is our operations manager, have been busily scouring that Q&A, and we're going to invite them to join us now for a conversation in that. That said, I also want to make sure that you all know, please contact us at any time with additional questions. Happy to set up one-to-one conversations. And most importantly, want to just thank you wholeheartedly for taking this time today, for considering this next step in the fight to right historic wrongs through our work in schools. We are thrilled at the interest that we've had in this program and really looking forward to continued conversations with all of you. Okay.
All right. So we have a lot of questions in the chat. Thank you to everyone who's been posting your questions. I'm going to try to consolidate some of them because some of the same questions are coming up. So several people were asking about what sort of prior experiences are you looking for in lead applicants? So a couple of people said they didn't go through PLI or they don't currently work in a school. What would the ideal applicant have in terms of background experience?
I'll let you take that, Leahy.
Sure. It's a great question. You know, we think that a rich diversity in our cohort certainly benefits the learning environment. And so we are not looking for everyone to have had the same experience. What is important to us is that you've had significant leadership experience, whether that's formally within the education systems or in, you know, a mission-aligned nonprofit or a higher education setting that you bring with you. This is not a program that's going to spend a lot of time digging into some of those you know, foundational elements of leadership in the way that the PLI master's program does. It does assume some significant experience in formal leadership roles. And so that's what we're looking for.
Okay. There were several questions about the field residency. One person asked if the residency is paid by the university or if it's something that they have to individually fund as a student. And then another person asked if who sets them up. So is it the responsibility of the student to set it up, or does the program facilitate those residency placements?
Yeah, we will certainly facilitate. It's a partnership between student and university. We want to make sure that, you know, everyone's identifying the areas that they're interested in, but we certainly will support those. And we've already had meaningful conversations with a number of organizations. The field residency is a class, and so you pay for it mostly through your tuition. There's not an additional fee for most of them. The exception is if you're signing up for travel, the actual, you know, you're not paying for cover the salary of the faculty member or the experience itself, but you are paying, any related travel costs. And I just want to stress that is one option, but it's not a requirement. And so for some folks, that $30,000 yearly tuition will more than cover the cost of the field residency.
Okay, there's a related question. Leahy, you mentioned that the field residency happens in year 2 and year 3. And so several people were wondering, is this program designed for working professionals? Is the expectation that they could continue working full-time in year 2 and year 3? Or is it a model where they would have to not be working in order to finish the program?
Great question. Yeah, it is definitely a program designed for working professionals. Most of summer 2 summer of 2022 is spent doing field residency work. And so it is outside of school hours. There are some people who may consider not working full time, and that's not going to impede their ability to work in the program, but we are certainly assuming that you are more than fully employed if you are a leader in public education. Okay,
Jabari, I think this one's coming to you. Somebody had a question about research focus and how narrow you would like applicants to have their research focus kind of figured out at the time that they apply to this program.
Yeah, that's a great question because we want you to have a research interest and passion, but the absolute focus does not have to be developed at the time that you're applying. We need to know the areas of interest that are exciting you in terms of like big complex systems, transformation, management, et cetera, as well as equity issues, social justice. Maybe you're interested in looking at how the disparities in special education could be ameliorated across a large complex system, or discipline issues as they are continually manifesting themselves as an inequitable issue across complex systems, and how we can, and you're interested in working with researchers, scholars who are attempting to address those issues. The point simply is that you will also get, within the context of the curriculum, a lot of ideas for how you can sharpen your research focus. You will also get, in conjunction with your work with your advisors, your 2 advisors and your eventual dissertation committee, a sharpening of the focus of the direction that you want to take your research in, so that we don't want you to come too fully formed because that might be an implication that you're resisting the way the curriculum itself is designed to open your aperture wider for the kinds of things that you can consider in the way of research.
Great. This question could go to either of you. It's about the program's core curriculum. Several participants expressed a lot of excitement about the course offerings as you described them, Leahy. One person asked, is the curriculum inclusive of all levels of education? So will they learn about K-12, community college, university contexts? And then related to that, somebody asked, is there a way for them to find out more about what these courses are about? Like, are there syllabi available? How can they get a better taste of what they're going to get in LEAD?
I love that. You want to get the first part of that, Jabari, and then I can.
I'll let you take that, Lee. Go ahead.
Okay,
You've been working on that very intensely.
Yeah, well, it's been a labor of love. The core program, the required courses focus on public education and organizational leadership. And so, we really root the work in democracy, equity, and leadership. That's the name, and those are the concepts that we cover. We go into the ability to go into more specification on particularly the community college and university level comes through elective courses. So that is not something that we delve into a lot in the required coursework, but that is something that can be supplemented through electives. If you go onto our website, which is gse.berkeley.edu/lead, and I'll put it in the chat in just a second, you can actually see a course sequence, and you'll see the numbers of the courses, which you can then look up in the course catalog. And there's a page under our website on elective courses that includes the course descriptions as well. I hesitate to release syllabi because we want to, particularly given how big of a watershed moment this year has been, we are still fine-tuning readings and research to make sure that what we're providing is fully timely. And so that is going to be ongoing work for us through the fall, and things are certainly in place. But I would absolutely love to chat with anyone one-on-one who has some more questions or wants to get a clearer idea and share some of our thoughts and some of our anchor readings as well.
Okay, we have just a couple other questions that I think haven't been addressed. Jabari, you might want to speak to this one. The question is, how is an EdD dissertation different than a PhD dissertation?
That's a great question. And the key consideration is that the EdD dissertation is going to have much more of a dedicated focus on considerations of leadership, management, transformation, of complex school systems. It will still have key considerations that would attend to any scholarly endeavor. So there's going to be a literature review, but that literature review is going to illuminate the research question that you and your committee are posing relative to something that's a problematic or systematic issue in complex educational systems that you're attempting to address, illuminate, or in some cases even hopefully add toward resolving. It will have like a systematic methods section. Often it will be qualitative methods, but it could also be quantitative methods, and all of that's going to be determined partially by the kind of advising you seek out in terms of the faculty resources that are available for you. And again, of course, it will have a rigorous analysis and findings section that is in some ways consistent with what would be going on in a PhD dissertation. But this is going to be the difference. We are really aware that the time frame of getting a person in and out in 3 years is going to be the test of our viability as a program. And part of that way of speeding that up is we're thinking about or making available at one level data sets that will be able to be accessed by students, so you might not necessarily have to create your own data set. We're having tremendous opportunities through the work that we're doing in other institutions of education that we have contacts and networks with, as well as the new 21st century CSLA grant, where we have under the School of Education, both the state center as well as a regional academy for transforming leadership across the entire state. And so the data and resources that are going to be available in those settings are going to allow us to offer some data sets that you can build on to accentuate and move in a particular direction with your research in that regard. And so that's going to help to speed up the process, as opposed to some dissertations that themselves may take, a year to 2 to write up once a person has advanced to candidacy in a PhD program.
Okay. I see just a couple new questions. Can a candidate select a non-GSE advisor?
Jabari, you want to take that one?
Yes, I'll take it. You can have access to, there will be 3 people on your dissertation committee. It can be a non-GSE advisor, but we have to work this out in terms of whether that person can be the primary advisor, because you'll have access to advisors who are faculty members anywhere in the UC system. We already have that established, where people can be on your committee, your dissertation committee, who are anywhere in the UC system. But your initial advisors are going to probably be in the GSE, the 2 people, one being a clinical faculty member and the other being a Senate faculty member. And then there'll be a 3rd person that will be brought into the conversation to help guide your dissertation. And that person can come from other areas of the university writ large, 10 campuses. It could even be a scholar from Harvard or Stanford or one of the, or Mills College, one of the other universities that we have collaborative advising relationships with.
Okay, Leahy, this question's coming to you. Several people asked about the employer sponsorship form that you noted as part of the application. And so the question is, what if I don't have a current employer while I'm applying, or what if I intend to be employed somewhere else when I'm in the program because, you know, my current job would not be compatible with completing this program? How does a candidate handle the employer sponsorship form in that case?
Great question. I would say reach out to me one-on-one and let's talk through that. You know, the reason for this requirement is that we want to make sure that we're supporting you in being able to meet those requirements. It is not meant to be something that inhibits folks from applying. And certainly I know at this current moment that there's just a lot in flux. And so if you have specific questions because your employment is shifting or you're not sure where you'll be, get in touch and let's talk through it and come up with an individualized plan.
I think those may have been all the questions.
Right at the dot of 5 o'clock.
Look at that.
Professional, the bell hasn't rung or anything.
And if there are any that are unanswered, I'm assuming we still have access to the Q&A and we can write answers back. Great.
Yeah, our next step, we will be posting this info session on our website and I'll send an email when that's done and will probably be sometime early next week. And when I send that email, I'll also provide any responses to questions that we've seen come up in the Q&A that we weren't able to get to today. Again, all that said, please consider that you have full access to us, to me, and so just get in touch if you'd like to go over anything that pertains to you. And with that, we thank you so much for your time on this beautiful, at least here in the Bay Area, it's both a Thursday afternoon and a beautiful one at that. We look forward to hearing from you and are really excited that you are at this step. We need more transformational school leaders, and it is a pleasure to get to spend an hour with a few of them right here. So thank you all.